Now the harder way just might be my favorite song on the album because all right, so the hard way was actually one of the funnest songs that I actually made for the album. And honestly, it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite song, simply because it just came together so beautifully, starting from the concept itself. All right. So the hard way, I actually made the hard way, or I started making the hard way not too long after I came up with the idea for Decisions, right? So, you have Paths, the interlude, where you're at the fork in the road and, Chris is actually telling you, or giving you spoken word about these two paths, right? The easy way and the hard way. And then you have Decisions where I'm actually interpreting basically this, I'm giving the same message that Chris is giving, just in music form. Like, you got to think twice before you make a decision. There's this way, there's that way, right? So when it came to the hard way, I was just thinking to myself, what if you're in that fork in the road and you actually choose the hard way instead of the right way? You know what I'm saying? And the interesting parallel that came to mind when it came to this whole idea for the song, I'm like, where I come from, the hard way isn't typically the hard way that most people think of, right? The hard way where I come from is actually the right way. Going to school, all graduating from high school, going to college, doing a 9 to 5, 4 years in college, getting a bachelor's degree, getting a degree, getting a job in, the long way, so to speak, of actually getting success. Where I come from, that's the hard way. The easy way is the streets. That's the easy way, getting fast money, things like that. You know what I'm saying? Doing all of that, those sinful things to get money. You know what I'm saying? That's the easy way where I come from. So I always thought about that as so interesting, because it's like we have that mindset of the easy way being the best way and the hard way being the bad way. We don't want to do the hard way. We want the easy way of things. But in reality, it's the other way around, right? Because yeah, this is the easiest way to get money, but it's the hardest life to live because there's bigger consequences to that. You know what I'm saying? You might not make it home. You might lose family and friends and things like that. You know what I'm saying? You might lose your own freedom. You might be in jail, you know what I'm saying? And things like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a song that's going to really play on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to choose the hard way, but this is the actual hard way. The easy way is actually the hard way. So I really wanted to give that message with that song. And that's where the whole concept of the harder way came to be. And it was just such a perfect fit for the album, especially at this point of the album, listening to the album right after Paths and Decisions. So when it came down to making the beat for Harder Way, I absolutely had so much fun because the concept was such a dope concept to me. I was just like, it's like changing the mindset, or it's like looking at things in a different way. You get what I'm saying? So when it came down to the beat was just a combination of things. So this beat in particular is one that I made, and oh my gosh, the making of this beat was just so fun because the first thing that came was the guitar, right? So we had this part right here, which is right up top, the guitar. Let's make this a little bigger, right? So you guys can see this, right? So we had the guitar first, which is right up here, right? You know what I'm saying? And that, to me, just by itself was just incredible. I'm like, this is going to be the lifeline of the entire track right here, right? This is what it's going to be. From this point, the next thing I proceeded to add was the synths, right? And man, I went from layer to layer to layer. Altogether, it doesn't sound like it's that many things going on, but in reality, it actually is. So the first synth I came up with, and this is from a synth pop string, so it's actually pop music synths, right? So this is the first one I had. Right? And then I ended up having this one behind it. right? Then I actually ended up having this one behind that. Right? So now, once you put all three of them together, you got this unique just sound that just sounded dope. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, yo, this is crazy. This sounds awesome. Like, look how it all is just like coming together. So then at one point I was just like, you know what? Let me bring in another one. I'm just gonna see how much I can add to this before it starts sounding bad. So I ended up adding this part right here, which sounds like this. But see, this part, as you can see, I didn't start it when the other one started. It actually comes in a little bit later, and that's an actual jazz organ. So when you put them all together, it goes. See how it just came in there? So now when you have that and you throw that guitar with it, you know what I'm saying? And it just created this dope sound, you know, and that was basically the start of it from this point, you know. So at this point, I was just like, all right, I got a bunch of high parts. Let me actually start putting some bass, some low end. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna go bass. I'm just gonna go straight up 808s. You know what I'm saying? It actually is, I think this was the first track that I actually made on the album that actually had 808s. So I brought in the 808s. I used the Hitachi 808s, and man, this thing just sounded crazy. But here's the 808s right here. I wanted something heavy, something to kind of fit that trap vibe. So you know what I'm saying? And it was just like, okay, this is gonna sound crazy once it's all put together. So I ended up, you know, just tweaking it and getting it to fit with all my synths that I had with the guitar, and it just created the perfect melody. So from this point, I was just like, all right, what am I going to do next, right? Of course, I have my 808s. Typically, you have to have the kick with the 808s, but am I going to add any other drums? So at this point, I was just like, this sounds dope, and I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to just start adding some drums and see what's what and see what I take out and things like that. So what I ended up having was, first, I ended up adding the kick, right? So the kick's right here, and the kick goes with the 808s. So right, and that sounded dope to me. So then I was like, all right, now I'm gonna add some of my trap door, and you can see the trap door is like a recurring theme for me because I use that a lot. I tweak it and change it up and things like that, but it just creates such a great trap music sound, you know what I'm saying? And it comes default in Logic, by the way, if you didn't know. So you don't got to pay extra for it or anything. It comes in Logic. So what I ended up doing, I ended up adding this part to it, which really kind of just gave it more of a bounce. Now, if you're not sure what you're hearing, let me take off everything so you can hear it. This is actually called, like, I think the crate. It's a crate sound. So it's a crate and a snare, right? And then of course, and that right there, right? I mean, if I were just to play that with the kicks alone, it sounds dope. Right? So once I had this, I was like, yo, I don't think I could make a mistake on this track. Like everything is just fitting perfectly. So I just kept going. You know what I'm saying? So the next thing I ended up adding these right here, which is the basically it's following it's hi-hats, but it's basically following the crate. Right? So now if I bring everything else back in that I had before, it really just started to come to life. Now from this point, even though this is out of order, I actually had the claps. I brought in the claps first. So once the claps were added, it sounded like this. Here's the claps right here. At this point, it was like this for a long time. Like this was the point of the track that I didn't really have anything else. Like at this point, that's when I really started kind of like building the rest of the track. You know what I'm saying? Like actually turning it into a song. And then I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, I want something that's in there that's just gonna kind of annoy you in a sense. You know what I'm saying? But also just vibe with the whole track. And then I eventually found this one cymbal in this pack that I had, and it had just such a cool sound to it. And that's this sound right here. And I was like, as simple as that sounds, it just gave it just kind of like a dance to it. It kind of makes you want it to dance once you heard it. So once you put it all together, it was just magic. And of course, I think from this point, my favorite sound in the entire track was this sunrise chord that I found, which is this right here, right? Sunrise chord. And it comes only during the second part of the hook, but it's this sound right here. And what I did with this sound in particular is, if you're really listening to it, you'll notice that it's actually panning, meaning it's coming in one direction and going out the other direction in your eardrums, right? If you're listening to the car, you might not catch it. But if you're listening to it with some headphones, you will literally hear it going from one end of your ear and back and forth. So that's something that I added to it just for that particular part of the hook, so that when it all came together and it came to that second part of the hook, which is right here, you got this. And that's pretty much what I had. So from that point, it was just like, yo, I can't mess this song up. So I'm just going to stay right here before I end up actually, in fact, messing it up. So I built the whole structure to it, and I was like, boom, this is the hard way. So the next thing I did, I was like, all right, I'm going to send this. Because it has such a southern feel to it, you know, such a Atlanta, you know, southern vibe to it. I was like, I want to get some features on here, right? That is just going to kind of just bring this to life. And the first person I thought of was my boy Player, or P-Easy, or Peasy as we call him, right? So, you know, I sent it over to him. I was like, bro, you know, would you be down to be on the track? You know what I'm saying? And he was like, sure, send me it. So I sent it to him, and he was like, he absolutely loved it, right? So when I sent it to him, you know, it was 16 bars. Like my verse is 16 bars, and his verse is 16 bars, right? So what ends up happening is when he actually comes in to record, right, he actually fit his 16 in 8 bars, right? So he actually only used half of the verse. And I was like, yo, that's so dope. That's perfect. I love your verse. I don't want you to change anything. So you're going to keep that right there. We're going to keep that. and we're just gonna get somebody else to do another 8. And I immediately thought of Young A, who is actually a part of Player's team. You know, they're part of a huge super group, Most Wanted, and I knew A would have had that perfect, unique sound to come right after Peasy. So I was like, hey, you know, would you be down to hop on a track? So he was like, absolutely. So he comes in, he does his 8 bars, and I'm just like, yo, this thing is coming together crazy. So A does his part, Player does his part, my part's already in there. Literally everything came together like flawlessly, and I couldn't have been more happier, you know. Then I added particular parts in the beat for each one of their verses and everything like that. I changed up the beat during my parts of the verse, and it just, everything came together in the most unique way for this song, and it's just the whole concept and the whole message behind the song is so unique and so dope that to me it's one of my favorite songs. It's at least top 2, you know what I'm saying? It's one of my favorite songs on the album. I absolutely love this song, you know, and it was just such a blessing to go through this whole process. And again, these 2 artists, you know what I'm saying, they're not, you know, Christian artists, you know, they're artists, but they're my friends, you know, I know them. These dudes, I've known them for so long, you know, and they're down to support, they're down to lift up the body with me, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, it's just such a blessing to, you know, have friends and have, you know, fellow collaborators who's willing to collaborate with you, even though, you know, that's not their particular genre of music. You know what I'm saying? We're all believers at the end of the day. You know, we all choose to do music how we choose to do music, but it's just so dope and so cool that they were happy to be a part of it. And I'm so thankful to both of them because they ended up bringing this track to places that I didn't know it was going to go, you know? So that's the hard way. That thing came together in the easiest way possible. But hey, that's what happens when you're making music. You feel me?
Living like the harder way. Hope you make it through the day. I know you're trying.